Trump sprints toward a very insidious plan using Ghislaine Maxwell to absolve himself of any culpability in the Epstein files. And I've got 4 interviews this week. I talked to Gavin Newsom, Jasmine, Crockett, Summer Lee, and Beto O'Rourke, all to discuss the Epstein files, the DOJ's meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, and Trump's effort to gerrymander Texas. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. What's almost as striking as how slow Trump's been to release the still not released Epstein files is how fast the DOJ moved to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell. And the reason for that speed is clear. Congress passed a motion last week compelling both the release of the Epstein files and compelling a deposition from Maxwell. And that happens on August 11th, which means that the Trump administration, the White House, had to get to her before August 11th in case, they needed to make sure that her story didn't involve any accusations against a certain president of the United States or implicate him in any way. And they knew, by the way, that they had leverage. She's serving out a 20-year prison sentence, and Trump just so happens to wield the pardon power. So there are certainly the ingredients for a quid pro quo from a president who is a pro at quid pro quo-ing. And so Trump's former personal criminal defense attorney, Todd Blanche, sprinted on down to a prison in Florida and had 2 days worth of meetings with Maxwell, whose attorney then wasted no time in telling everybody that, yes, she just so happens to be in the market for a presidential pardon. Surprise, surprise. All of which is to say, if Trump wanted to fix this situation, he certainly has the power to do so. Which raises the obvious question, how does Trump get out of this without it looking like a massive PR disaster? Well, everybody wants a list. And so Trump gets Ghislaine Maxwell to throw out some Democrats' names, which the DOJ will then go after. She says that Trump had nothing to do with Epstein, thereby absolving him of any and all culpability. And then as a little thank you for her great service to this nation by exposing those evil pedophile Democrats, she gets a presidential pardon, maybe even a Medal of Honor by Donald Trump. So for him, it's a win-win, right? He gets to prosecute some Democrats, love that. He gets to declare innocence for himself, also great. And all it costs him is a pardon that he's already abused literally thousands of times. Now, of course, there will be the usual right-wing sycophants who are going to buy this story. And look, I love my dog more than anything in the world, but even my dog isn't as loyal as Charlie Kirk is to Donald Trump. If Trump offers up this very thin veneer of an excuse, people like Charlie will lap up that slop like it's the only meal they've gotten all week. And he'll happily serve it out to his audience, too, and they'll believe it as well. And there are plenty of people like that. Greg Kelly from Newsmax, who's already saying out loud that Ghislaine Maxwell is a victim. Maxwell, the woman who literally trafficked and abused girls, herself, the victim. I'm sure Megyn Kelly is falling over herself to protect Donald Trump. Plenty of people like that. But then there are people who want to show a little bit more skepticism. And there are people who are showing skepticism. You know, the people involved in the manosphere, maybe people who certainly were involved in getting Donald Trump elected, but aren't political operatives in the same way that some of these other MAGA mouthpieces are. So naive though this may be, I really do hope that these people see through the bullshit. And by the way, if I can see it right now from a mile away, if we all can see it from a mile away, clearly these people, if they are acting in good faith, are going to be able to do the same. But more importantly, I hope that they call it out if and when it happens. And we're going to learn a lot by their response to what happens here, because if they truly cared about transparency and accountability for the victims and the perpetrators, then, as they claimed during the campaign, then this blatant cover-up isn't going to cut it. But if it was only ever about protecting Donald Trump, then this is going to be all they need to fall right back in line. The reality is that we already know Trump is implicated. If the guy was any less subtle about his links to Epstein, he would have it tattooed on his fucking forehead. But now we're going to learn a lot about the MAGA base. Do they have a shred of dignity, or is allegiance to the God King first and foremost more important than accountability for literal pedophiles? I have a strong feeling we're about to find out. Next up are my interviews with Gavin Newsom, Jasmine, Crockett, Summer Lee, and Beto O'Rourke. But first, just a quick reminder that in one video per week, this one, I have sponsors. So here's a quick note from some sponsors, and then interviews from Gavin Newsom, Jasmine Crockett, Summer Lee, and Beto O'Rourke. No Lie is brought to you by Armor Colostrum. Why are elite athletes, business moguls, and high performers using Armor Colostrum? Armor Colostrum is nature's first whole food with over 400 bioactive nutrients working at the cellular level to build lean muscle, accelerate recovery, and fuel performance, all without artificial stimulants or synthetic junk. When you're running a business, training hard, or just want an edge, Armor Colostrum optimizes your body for peak output. So let's talk about one of those instances in particular, metabolism. Armor strengthens your gut barrier to guard against toxins, chemicals, and pollutants that can drive inflammation and slow down metabolism. Armor helps enhance nutrient absorption, stabilize blood sugar levels, and modulate hormones like leptin that ignite your body's fat-burning capacity for your peak metabolic performance. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 15% off your first order. Go to tryarmor.com/BTC or enter BTC to get 15% off your first order. That's TRYARMRA.com/BTC. No Lie is brought to you by Smalls. So I am the biggest animal lover that you will ever find. I'm sure that if you've seen my content, you've often seen my dog sitting behind me. But I also have a cat. Although he's not specifically my cat, he's a neighborhood cat, comes to my door every single day to the point where I now buy food every single month for a cat that isn't technically mine. But I love this cat, he is my responsibility, and I have to make sure to feed him every day and to feed him with food that is actually good. And that's why I love Smalls. Smalls cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients that you would find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. That's why Cats.com named Smalls their best overall cat food. And you're probably wondering, why can't I just feed my cat kibble? Believe it or not, your cute kitty descended from ferocious desert cats who hunted live prey for food, and your cat isn't any different. They still need fresh, protein-packed meals to be at their best. Other cat food brands know this, but they choose to put their wallets first. They fill their food with mysterious meat byproducts, artificial flavoring, and preservatives with names that I don't even want to try to pronounce. If that sounds gross, imagine having to eat it every day. After switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. That is a big deal. The team at Smalls is so confident that your cat is going to love their product that you can try it risk-free. That means they will refund you if your cat won't eat their food. For a limited time only, because you're a No Lie listener, you can get 35% off Smalls plus an additional 50% off your first order by using my code BTC. That's an additional 50% off when you head to smalls.com and use promo code BTC. Again, that's promo code BTC for an additional 50% off your first order plus free shipping at smalls.com. I'm joined now by the Governor of California. We're here in Sacramento in the Governor's Mansion. I appreciate you taking the time.
No, great to be with you. Thanks for coming up.
So you met today with the delegation from Texas. Obviously, Greg Abbott in Texas is looking to gerrymander those maps even further. So first and foremost, what is the state of possible mid-cycle redistricting right now?
In California, we have an independent redistricting, which I supported. I was one of the few Democrats at the time that publicly supported it, elected Democrats at the time, to move away from partisan gerrymandering, which should happen. And the point we made then, when it was on the ballot, was it should happen all across the United States.
Right.
That didn't happen, hasn't taken shape. And so what's happened is now we're at a disadvantage. We're trying to play by one set of rules, and these folks on the other side have played by a completely different set of rules. So much so that the President of the United States called Greg Abbott and told him, in essence, find 5 additional seats so we can rig the election next year and maintain the power and authority with the House of Representatives, which de facto amounts to no power, no authority, complete capitulation so Trump can continue to run roughshod over our rights and liberties.
So what are the options presented to us right now? I know that there's going to be some legal hurdles that if push comes to shove we'll have to look at, but what's on the table as of right now?
So right now the most important caucus is the delegation of Democratic representatives in the state of California that would have their districts changed mid-decade. Then number 2, we need to get 2/3 of our California legislature to put it on the ballot to create a special election. And then 3, the ultimate authority will be vested in the people of the state of California that would have to make the determination of whether or not we should continue to play by one set of rules as these guys continue to rig the game and play by a wholly different set of rules. So that's one process. The second one is a legislative process. Independent of the independent redistricting, there's a novel legal theory that it's silent about redistricting mid sort of mid-decade, mid-census. And so on that basis, it would be to test that theory. It would be an easier path in some respect, but it's also a path that wouldn't necessarily give voice and choice to the public. And so I have my own preferred path, but the legislature will ultimately make the determination.
Can those two things happen concurrently? This way, if one fails at the courts or whatever it may be, then you at least have another process you can look at?
Look, conceivably that's the case. We're in session right now, so I don't need to call a special session, which is good. And as a consequence of that, the legislature will kick tires and relates to these options and make the best judgment they possibly can. The cleanest path, I think, just being candid with folks, the cleanest path would be to go back in front of the voters to make the case that things have radically changed since the last time this was presented in front of the voters. And as a consequence, we need to change. They would recognize the stakes as it relates to Texas. We can, in essence, likely neuter the total number of districts that Trump is looking to get with Abbott in rigging those maps here in the state of California. Hope other governors consider doing similar things. You've got to fight fire with fire. This is an existential moment. We have agency. We can act superior. We can act holier than thou and watch the last half century wiped out in real time. I think we need to be held to a higher level of accountability and meet this moment and lean in on this and get tough.
And I want to talk about those other governors in a moment. But first, right here in California, there is a little bit of I guess, opposition to this. There was an assembly member, Alex Lee, who had come out and said that doing this would kick off a cycle of gerrymandering that would kind of lead us down, to a bad place in politics. My response to this, when I look at this, is we're already there.
There.
Republicans have gerrymandered Ohio, Florida. They're looking to do it in Texas right now. Utah, North Carolina, it's within an inch of its life. And so what is your response to those folks in the Assembly, in the California legislature, who I guess are opposing this because they think it's going to set some type of a bad precedent?
Yeah, I think that was a minority view, meaning he's deeply an exception. I've not heard any other utterance from any other member of the Democratic caucus. In fact, quite the contrary. It's been a chorus of support saying, what can we do to help? What are the pathways? What are our considerations? What's the timing on this? And I'm not even sure at the end of the day, the final analysis, he would, in essence, even agree with his own statement. He's a friend, and I don't want to cast aspersions on that. I don't think he fully absorbed the lay of the land as you just laid out. These guys have been rigging, gerrymandering these districts. Look what happened in North Carolina a few years ago. In essence, it was it was the difference, by the way, between Speaker Jeffries today versus Speaker Johnson was just what they did in North Carolina. The consequences, what more evidence of the consequences do we need? So I think in the final analysis, there'll be overwhelming support here.
How committed to getting this done are you? And I ask this because, look, I'm a Democrat, and part of being a Democrat is seeing that when the Republicans want to get something done, they won't let anything stand in their way, not the laws, not judges, not the U.S. Constitution. And if Trump wants to do something, he'll just do it. And that's obviously a point of consternation among Democrats who are at the opposite end of the spectrum, where we had H.R. 1, our top priority when Democrats had full control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. Granted, we didn't have enough to overcome the filibuster, but we did have enough votes to eliminate the filibuster if we wanted to, which is to say that was our top priority, and we couldn't get it done with full control of government.
It's exhausting. I'm sick of it, and I don't want to be on the receiving end of that anymore. I'm sick and tired of being on our heels. Got to be on our toes. It's not about fighting back. It's about leaning forward, and it's about setting the tone and tenor. I'm sick of this party needs to wake up. These guys aren't screwing around. And I say this not in literal sense, but they're assassins when it comes to the way they weaponize grievance and the way they play politics. Enough. What more goddamn evidence do we need? Excuse my language. They've rolled back the last half century. In real time, that's just 6 months.
Right.
Can you imagine this guy having an additional 42 months with no system of checks and balances, no oversight? Seriously, the hell else more evidence do you need? This is an existential moment. And so Democrats, if we want to have a party, if we want to be functioning, not just as a party, but as a democracy, if we want a system of checks and balances, we believe in the rule of law, if you believe in popular sovereignty, this is not about popular sovereignty. This guy wants to wire. He tried to break this democracy, tried to light it on fire on January 6th. He just made a call to the governor of Texas saying, in this case, not find me the votes, but find me new seats to rig the game. If we want to still be in this game, we need to disabuse ourselves, disenthrall ourselves of the status quo in the past. We have got to enter a new mindset, and we've got to get back on this playing field, and we've got to do it with the kind of vigor that our kids and grandkids deserve, that liberty and freedom deserves this moment. The founding fathers deserve the principles that define the best of Roman Republic and Greek democracy. That's on the line unless we stand the line and stand guard of this democracy, and that means we got to go on offense. No more defense, go on offense, fight fire with fire. So you ask me, am I in? I'm all in. You ask me, am I committed? I'm all in, committed and resolved. And so this is not a bluff. This is a moment to be held to a higher level of accountability.
So to that point then, we know that Texas is going to do this. Trump has already issued his clarion call to other states. We've heard of Republicans in Missouri possibly doing this. And look, there are states across the country where, Democrats deign to have one congressional seat or two congressional seats in an otherwise red state. And those are obviously all going to be on the table as far as Republicans are concerned, because Trump says jump, they say how high.
Yep.
And so what would your message be in this moment to governors of other states where Democrats control the process, states like New York, states like New Jersey, Maryland, Illinois, Washington, Oregon, where we can, using your exact words, fight fire with fire?
I'm encouraged in the last few days. You're seeing governors now publicly state what I believe they believe privately in a more assertive way. The Texas delegation, to their credit, have helped us, I think, develop a little more courage on this. I mean, the fact that they took time to fly out of their state to meet with me, they're meeting with other governors. They met with them today. They're reaching out. I am a little more confident that we're going to wake up to this reality in a way that's a lot more aggressive and more assertive. You're seeing it take shape. There's been a little timidity, which I understand. Because again, when they go high, we get all that. I mean, right. I get all that. It's just, come on.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
Right.
You got to act.
It's a slogan of a past era at this point.
It just is. With Trump, all bets are off.
Well, I think part of the benefit for them is they recognize, they factor it in that they have a weak adversary, and so that kind of emboldens them to know that they can run roughshod over the Constitution, over laws, over Democrats if they want to, because historically, Democrats haven't fought back. And so what would the impediment be for them?
Yeah, I mean, there's just, as you're saying that, there's just a vivid image of McConnell in the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
I mean, Jesus, right. Democrats, come on. Wake up. Wake up. This thing may be gone, this whole thing, in a matter of years. I mean, I feel like it's a matter of months. So this is like, if you're not going to do it, step aside. I mean, it's one of those things. It's just like, come on.
No, but that's exactly right. If you're not willing to fight at a moment where what's required is fighting, then you. And I have a romantic view of the world as well. I want the sort of Sorkin music in the background and the soaring speech to our higher angels to find that soul, but not at this moment. We're in a war right now, and we're in the trenches, and this guy is rolling us. And he thinks we're weak, so let's not act weak. He thinks we're meek, let's not act meekly. Let's meet this moment head on. And we have two things. We have formal authority. We still have it in so many of these states. We have states like California with a state of mind where you can pick up 5+ seats. And we can push back, but we also have moral authority because we know what we're fighting for. We know who we're fighting against. And so when you have moral authority and formal authority, you need to exercise it, at peril of being judged not to have lived. And all of us will judge ourselves, even more extremely that is, if we don't meet this moment. So let's not dream of regretting. Those that have the privilege, like I do, public service, at this moment, I'm so blessed. I mean, if I was on the sideline kicking and screaming, just trying to throw things or just, sending messages, watching something like this, that's hard. I empathize with that. And so I'm so lucky to be that voice to the extent I can. And so I'm going to do my best. I don't want to overpromise here. There's still a lot of issues we're trying to address and kick the tires on. But if we don't win back this House, if we don't take back the House, we may not have an election in 2028. That is not a gross exaggeration. I mean, when you receive in the mail a Trump 2028 hat
by one of Trump's biggest influencers. They mean business.
Right.
This is a moral moment. This is the game. This is it. And we cannot tap out.
Right. This is the saying where they tell you who they are, believe them, right?
Believe them.
Okay, I want to switch topics a little bit right now because I would be remiss not to ask you about the biggest story happening in the country right now, which is Epstein. Just today, Trump came out and said that when he was asked if he was briefed by the DOJ about being in the Epstein files, he said no. 2 days ago, it came out in the Wall Street Journal that, in fact, Pam Bondi did brief the president. And so what's your reaction to the fact that he is still perpetuating this lie?
Well, he's lying to cover up his prior lies and then lying again. Now he doesn't even know truth from fiction. And so, look, he's caught it red-handed. He's in the files. We know it, period. Full stop. That's not even accurate. We know he's in the files. We know what this is all about. He told Pam Bondi, not to move forward. It's the idea that he has to fire her. He should step down himself if he fires her because he directed her not to release these files. I always assumed that. Now we know that she briefed him. So he's lying. He's part of this cover-up. And he has confused even the most ardent observers here. I mean, you can't, the guy's a pretzel on this issue. Every hour he contradicts a statement.
We got the Olympics coming in California in 2028. He can join the gymnastics.
I'm not even sure. I think that there have to be an additional sports because even gymnastics doesn't have enough flips and turns and everything. Look, it's a hell of a thing. And so this guy, you reap what you sow. He created this. He weaponized, he's done it from the birth certificate on down. He does this little thing with Q, the whole thing, too cute by half. And now he's caught. And real people, I mean, I was on a podcast with Sean Ryan, who's, a remarkable person in many ways, incredible supporter of Trump.
Yeah.
And he expressed in real terms, how disappointed, and now he's questioning everything. And I think this is a real political problem for Trump in a way that prior patches of problems have not been.
Well, you've had the opportunity to speak with a lot of these right-wing influencers. You just mentioned one. You've also spoken with Charlie Kirk. And so you know these guys. And a lot of them spent the campaign staking their support, building up their reputation on this issue. And so as you kind of see them trying to contort themselves to figure out where they're going to go. And we've seen moments where some of them, decide that, hey, I'm going to just attach my lips to Trump's ass, and that'll be how it goes. And then you have some others who are actually showing a little bit of spine and speaking out. And so what's your message to these folks in the right-wing media ecosystem who are figuring out where they want to go right now, whether it's, just to follow Trump at all costs, no matter what he says, or to show some independence in light of these new updates?
Well, I mean, people come and go. Reputations can be destroyed in a moment. I mean, just your reputation is the only thing you've got. I mean, the coin of the realm is trust. You've built audiences. You have incredible influence. Trump is not going to be president forever, even if he gets a third term or tries to manipulate a third term. Fate in life, there's an expiration date for all of us. These folks want to continue to build their platforms, and they're losing a lot of people. And, you start to lose people on this. They don't trust you on not just Trump. They won't trust these guys. Continue to have these guys back. He'll turn his back on all of them. There's not one of them. I mean, he all but said that. He laid these guys out. His biggest supporters may have been the difference in the election. Yeah. And he turned on them. He has zero loyalty. Right. At least be loyal to your followers on your own. You built these unbelievable platforms, and people are following you. Have the decency, I think, to have the back of those that are following you. Trump doesn't care about the people following, but those that run these platforms, I hope they consider their audience.
He was also asked whether he was considering pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. This is somebody who is, somebody who is completely depraved, who is an accomplice to a notorious, famed pedophile who has since died. And instead of giving the correct answer, which is, no, I would not consider offering a pardon to somebody like this, he said, I have the right. He reasserted his right to be able to do that, sending a pretty clear signal. We also found out from Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney that she is seeking a pardon. So we have Trump who's not ruling it out. We have her attorney who is overtly saying that that's what she wants.
Her attorney, Trump's a great deal maker. We've had so many candid
he's
conversations.
Doing what he knows is required.
This
right?
is sick stuff.
And so
this is sick. I mean, if you're a conspiracy theorist, they're going to turn me into one. Why the hell are we even talking to her?
Yeah.
What? A pardon for what? No, seriously, for what? Why is your personal attorney now at the DOJ meeting with her personal attorney? For what purpose? What is this about? You said, forget this, move on. I don't even understand what this is about. To pardon her for what? To have your back? To life? I mean, now we're going deeper, and now I'm starting to think, well, that maybe it's not just on these files. I mean, maybe this is even deeper. I mean, I'm not kidding. This is starting, like, even things where I'm like, okay, this guy just didn't want the association, wanted to make this about Democrats or some fancy mutual friends he may have had, didn't want to embarrass them, and there's been pressure there. People have written big checks to him. Maybe they're part of his crypto scams. But when you're meeting with her, with your former personal attorney, and you're literally socializing, which he does. This is what he does. He tests the theory, throws something out.
Yep, starts to lay the groundwork.
Lays the groundwork. He's serious about it. For what? Why? I mean, so this, where he's on the other side, this guy's, I said this to you a few months ago, and more evidence every single day. He's lost a step. This is not the same Trump 1.0. This is, something's off, increasingly off. And he's unmoored in ways, even like Trump standards, I haven't seen. I don't want to overstate this moment, but you can't understate this. Something ain't right, as they say.
And finally, let's finish off with this. To that exact point, on being unmoored, I suppose you don't think it's especially presidential to go on some spree talking about changing the Washington Commander's name, denaturalizing Rosie O'Donnell, getting cane sugar and Coca-Cola, relitigating Hillary's emails in the year 2025, and then, of course, arresting Barack Obama. And so in light of his kind of dissembling that's happening on the public stage, what's your response to what we're seeing from the president?
It reminds me of a punch-drunk boxer. He's just wildly flailing. He's flailing. He's just zigging and zagging. He's desperate. He's trying anything, trying to chum the waters, and it's not working. And normally it works for him. It's not working right now. I mean, that's why he's off promoting his golf courses in Scotland. Get me the hell out of here. Problem is, wherever he goes, his reputation, this sort of degenerate nature of who he currently is follows him. And that's why I think this one he's going to have not just some more explaining to do, he's going to have to do a lot more than he's done in the past to be able to dig his way out of this.
Governor Newsom, appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for dressing up a little nicer than I am.
I wore a tie this time for you, buddy.
Right. I'm joined now by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Thanks so much for joining me.
Absolutely.
So the new news today is that the House may not be in session as long as it was supposed to be, because now we have Mike Johnson threatening to recess the House so as not to have to vote on the Epstein files. Is that correct as of right now?
I don't know if I would say that that's correct, but you are accurate.
Right.
I think there's a lot of wrong in what you just said,
Yeah.
but you are absolutely accurate in what is going on in the Do Nothing Congress, in the Congress in which they pretend to be about transparency until it's time to be transparent, in the Congress where they pretend to be about the people until it comes down to the votes and the policies to protect the people, and instead they inflict pain. I mean, this is kind of what this Congress is about hypocrisy at the highest levels, even if it means that they are going to go out of their way to protect the criminality, most likely, of this president, and basically waste taxpayer dollars in the process. That sounds about right. Yes, that's tracking.
You said the word transparency, which I think is the right choice of word, because Mike Johnson had used that exact word while talking about the Epstein files in the past. He said that we needed transparency as it relates to these files. And so how do you square this now with what excuse could he possibly have to justify doing whatever he can, bending over backwards, twisting himself into pretzels so that there isn't any vote taken on the Epstein files when he himself is on record saying that we need transparency about this very issue?
You're asking me to do the impossible.
To get into Mike Johnson's head?
Yeah, because this idea of trying to explain the unexplainable, I just can't. I mean, this is part of the reason I'm not a Republican, right? Because they are consistently doing the things that really there is no explanation for, including the fact that they are talking out of both sides of their mouths. And you pointed to the speaker, but let's be clear. This president has not been able to wield the level of influence and power that he is wielding without the help of so many minions, including the speaker, but not limited to. Let's not forget this amazing attorney general that we have, who also has been speaking out of both sides of her mouth. So, you know what? There's not very many things that are bipartisan. In this Congress, ever since the Republicans have had control of the House, there's not been very many things that are bipartisan, but in a very bipartisan way, we are absolutely pushing for the release of these files. And that is why the speaker is having to do cartwheels in order to prevent a number of his members from taking votes that they really can't square with their voters. And he's hoping that the news cycle will blow over the next month as we are on recess. And we can come back and everybody's like, Jeffrey Epstein, who?
Right. Well, let's talk about recess for a moment then, because Marjorie Taylor Greene had come out earlier and said that she's gotten more calls about the Epstein issue than any other issue. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she signed on as a co-sponsor for the Massey-Khanna bill that would compel the release of these files. And so to what extent does folks calling congressional offices have an impact on their willingness to actually sign on to this kind of legislation?
I don't really know. Interesting example you used. I'll say it that way. I mean, here's the deal. I think that people organized around the big ugly bill and they called, and unfortunately, their calls fell on deaf ears. Now,
Yeah.
granted, they did know that they were doing wrong. And so that's why you saw immediate, like, I'm quitting Congress after I take this bad vote. Or you see people like Senator Tillis who says, never mind, I'm just not going to run for reelection. I mean, we are experiencing kind of this kind of thing, but like, does it actually change their actual votes? A lot of times I would say absolutely not. It's not changing their vote. I think that this is really big for those that believe that they have a large MAGA base of support, because this is becoming one of those delineation points for MAGA,
Right.
not 17 million people losing their health care. Who cares?
Right.
Not dropping bombs without any congressional approval, not making sure that food insecurity is a thing of the past, but the Epstein files. So
Yeah.
this is where we are.
Can you give some? So the bill that we've been speaking about is the discharge petition. It takes a certain amount of time for it to be able to come up for a vote. It's called ripening. This likely wouldn't happen until September. Now that Mike Johnson is going to use this maneuver to deprive the session of the requisite amount of days that it needs. But in the meantime, can you explain what the Oversight Committee is doing with regard to compelling the testimony of Ghislaine Maxwell?
Yeah, so one of our subcommittees, the Government Operations Subcommittee, I don't currently serve on that one anymore, but there actually was a motion to subpoena this woman who is currently serving a sentence, I believe, of 20 years to come and testify before the committee. That subpoena was actually prompted by a motion by Tim Burchett, is what I understand. And that motion did go forward. So again, I fully anticipate this was a bipartisan effort by those that serve on the subcommittee for government operations. And so they are supposed to move forward with the subpoena. Now, what that looks like, I don't know, right? As someone who has practiced criminal defense, trying to get someone out of custody, and obviously we need to consult with her lawyer. I don't know if she still has things that are pending some way, somehow on appeal, that would potentially impact the level of truthfulness, that we would get out of this. So definitely a lot of questions to be answered. But it is interesting that the committee itself, the subcommittee on oversight, decided to do this. And I think that I would trust this process more than I would trust the Department of Justice
Right.
kind of deciding that they're going to interview her and then ultimately potentially sanitizing the
Right.
information that we get, or potentially engaging in some type of threats, or potentially offering a pardon if certain things were said,
Right.
right? Or not said, you know? So we obviously don't have pardons to offer. And if for some reason there is testimony that takes place, it would take place and both sides would be able to participate. So ultimately, I actually have to say I would applaud Tim Burchett for attempting to get this done prior to the Department of Justice engaging in this type of conversation, because I don't know what may happen to that witness if the administration gets to her first.
I'm joined now by Congresswoman Summer Lee. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you made some big news today in a subcommittee of the Oversight Committee as it relates to the Epstein file. Can you explain what happened in that committee hearing?
Yeah, so it was a committee hearing that was explicitly about child sex trafficking. So we wanted to actually get to the bottom of it. It was a lot of back and forth to even get that vote. I think that, as we know, like the Republicans, so that we didn't have to do this, but we really thought that this subcommittee was not just appropriate, but we thought it was going to be the most opportune moment to actually do that. We knew that there were members on the other side who also were interested publicly in making sure that there was transparency and making sure that the Epstein files got back. So at the end of the day, yeah, we ended up with an 8-2 vote to subpoena those files. And now we've been told that Comer himself has said that the votes happen and he's expected to do it.
What was the sense among your Republican colleagues? Because this wasn't the first time within a committee or a subcommittee that Republicans have been faced with the prospect of voting for the Epstein files. It was brought up twice in the Rules Committee. Both of those efforts were voted down. And so can you talk a little bit about the pressure that these Republican lawmakers were in that ultimately led them to cave on this particular subcommittee?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to say it's a base, this is truly a base issue for them, but it's really just Americans across the country, Democrats, Republicans, independents, all districts are calling for this level of transparency, right? This is the thing that, I think is really unifying Americans right now. Not to diminish other things that are happening, but we've seen the amount of pressure that our constituents, that their constituents especially, have been putting on them. I'll say, though, there's different makeup in every committee, right? So I can't speak to the Rules Committee. I can't speak, to what's happened in those particular committees, whether or not the particular Republicans that were on this committee with us were there or not. But that was a missed opportunity, and I think that they show that opportunity in Rules Committee it should have been done. It should have happened there. They were called out and they were proven to be hypocrites in that moment. So this was the moment for them to put their money where their mouth was.
Okay, and now moving forward, what are next steps, I guess, procedurally speaking? I know that you had mentioned that James Comer, that this vote is binding here as far as James Comer is concerned. So what happens next?
Yeah, so what we saw even just this week, in another one of the subcommittee hearings, they actually subpoenaed Ghislaine Maxwell. Comer moved within 24 hours. To verify that and to send that to the DOJ, right? So we're expecting the same speed that he did it here, that he honors that. But it is a mandate, right? This was a binding subpoena that we issued today. So it will go to them, and what we expect then, as the language of the motion said, is that this would then be released to the minority and majority members of the federal law enforcement subcommittee. So we'll await that. Obviously, we're going to be out of session for a few weeks, but as we come back, we expect that will come before us.
And to what degree are you certain that the files that you receive are going to be? I know there's been a lot of talk about, okay, we're gonna discuss what pertinent files we can release. Obviously, pertinent is in the eyes of the beholder here. And if the arbiter of this stuff is Pam Bondi, who we now know, thanks to this new Wall Street Journal story, has more information than she'd been letting on, that Trump himself was in these files, obviously what's pertinent to her is going to be a lot different from what's pertinent to everybody else. And so are you confident that the files that are released are going to be the full files as opposed to just what she deems appropriate?
So listen, you can never be confident that people who are prone to corruption won't do corrupt things, right? But what I will say is that in our motion, we accounted for that, right? We requested very specifically the unredacted, full, complete files. In fact, Nancy Mace actually tried to amend the motion. And what her amendment was trying to do was add a word credible to it, right? So she wanted to add
Yeah.
within the words that we had already like meticulously chosen. She attempted to add just one word, credible. Higgins also really hard. He was like, look, it's one word. Why are you all worried about one word? But we're like, well, legally, who decides what is credible? Right? Whose standards, are we going to implement here? Right? Ultimately, that amendment failed. So as of right now, based on our subpoena, it should be the full, unredacted fouls, complete. No, there is no subjectivity. There is no, well, this is the part that I would like, or this is the part that I think might be credible, or the part that I think might be pertinent. None of that. We asked for we request it. It is a mandate to get the full, complete ones.
This vote happened around the same time that the Wall Street Journal story broke. Is there a sense, I'm curious, among Democrats, but also among Republicans in the Republican conference, is there a sense that the dam is breaking here?
It really feels that way. Over the last days when we found out that this subcommittee was convening, and particularly on the topic that we were meeting around, we planned to do this then. So I didn't know that was happening, but it does feel like not just a consistent drumbeat, right? But it's getting alerted that he's on this list. I think that we can all say that we all knew that also, but that he has been alerted, right? That he's been on the list, right? All these leaks, these slow leaks, and then now our ability to actually access the files, I think is the dam breaking. Because I actually think that the real dam breaking are American people, right? This is one thing. Listen, we are in an attention economy. Every week something is happening that one-ups the thing that happened last week. I mean, let's be honest, right? We've seen, members of legislatures be assassinated. We've seen the president, have an assassination attempts. We've seen, so much that's happened. And then, add to that, just like the reconciliation bill, the cuts to Medicaid, the tax cuts, all of the executive orders that have been coming down, right? The fact that the American people have not been distracted by this one, right? All of the news that's been coming, every distraction that they've attempted to throw out, all it's done is made the American people more resolved for this level of transparency, right? It's made them more concerned that there's something that must be hidden, right? They must be covering up something if they're going to go to these lengths, promise to release. So it's actually, I think, the Americans that broke the dam there, right? It was their persistence. It was them, their base consistently taking to social media, calling, letters, lobbying, right? That was the dam breaking.
I think that's such a good point. I mean, this is an issue that, yes, Trump is polling underwater on immigration, on the economy, on his tariffs and trade war, but those things pale in comparison. He's underwater negative 37 points on Epstein, and that's largely owed to the fact that he himself got into office on the back of this story, and he surrounded himself with people in his cabinet who staked their reputations on this story, on not allowing the government to continue covering up the heinous crimes of people who feel that they are completely immune to prosecution and unaccountable. And now they're doing the very thing that they claim to be railing against. When you have Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino secreting from the American people this idea that Trump is not in the Epstein files. If a president in the Democratic Party was in the same place as Republicans, do you think they really would want to hide this information? Or do you think that this is something that they would want to get out to the American people? And finally, let's finish off with this.
It gets right to it, right? This is the corruption story, right? That nobody is supposed to be above the law. That, to take these, when average Joes, right? If an average person did something like this, right, you wouldn't see, all of the protections of the law. But that's why people don't trust this institution. Is why they don't trust our government, right? There's always just this idea that there is some, secret club where they get secret protections and they have secret laws that only they have to abide by. And there's other ones that the rest of us have to abide by. This is the one where people are really putting those, like that puzzle piece together, right? Why should a president or a prince or anyone else be protected in ways that working class people never will be?
And finally, let's finish off with this. And this is, I think we were kind of leading toward this anyway, but what would your message to voters out there be who predicated their vote, their support for Trump on this idea that he would, expose this criminality and end this corruption that happens at the hands of people who, again, view themselves as completely unaccountable? What's your message to those people in light of what we've found out now?
Trump has repeatedly peddled conspiracy theories, lies. He has been blatantly corrupt. This is the moment where he lied directly to you. He lied directly to you. He said that he would release these files. He said that this was a top issue. They have all intimated that holding child sex traffickers, child sexual abusers accountable. But when the rubber met the road, they would not do it. When they were afraid that there would be accountability for themselves, they went to hide it. So we have a responsibility. If you'll lie about this, what else are they lying about? I think that those of us who are, of course, maybe not on that side recognize more of the lies. But for those who may be realizing this, right? This is not the fake Donald Trump. This is the real one, right? This is the one
right.
That does this consistently, lies without a second thought, right? So we have to not just hold him accountable, but we have to believe that about him.
Well, Congresswoman, I appreciate the fight that you brought to this issue today and not letting it fall by the wayside, even despite the fact that Republicans are trying to throw everything at the wall to get us not to pay attention to the Epstein files, from cane sugar and Coca-Cola all the way up to arresting Barack Obama and even relitigating Hillary's emails right now in 2025. So again, thank you for fighting in the Oversight Committee as you have. Congratulations on getting this motion passed, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate yours.
I'm joined now by Beto O'Rourke. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So, Beto, right now we are watching as the Texas legislature has been called into session by Greg Abbott to push forward this further gerrymander that was ordered by Donald Trump. And I want to get into that in just a moment. But first, we obviously have some major breaking news handed down by the Wall Street Journal that shows that Donald Trump was informed back in May that by his own Department of Justice that he was named in the Epstein file. So first and foremost, can I have your reaction to the fact that for months, we've been engaged in this, I guess, blatant cover-up by administration officials and law enforcement officials to train our attention on Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, all while knowing that Trump himself was in the files that he's trying to hide?
I think this is what everyone, and I don't mean every Democrat, but every American long suspected, that Trump, who is a longtime friend of Jeffrey Epstein, Trump, who we learned from the Wall Street Journal as well just a few days ago, apparently sent Epstein a bawdy birthday letter where he alludes to a secret that they have together. Something, of course, that Trump denies in unusual fashion, is trying to sue and intimidate and bully the Wall Street Journal to get them to retract this. But now we've learned why all this is going on. It's because he is named in the Epstein files that he and his administration refused to release to the American people. And you've seen this polling as well as I have, Brian. I mean, it's not Democrats, it's 90% of America. 90%, like what does 90% of America even agree on anymore? 90% of America wants to see the full files released. That is what Trump is up against right now. And let's see what happens. You saw that Speaker Mike Johnson, sent everybody back home until September from the House of Representatives, not able to do any work for anybody to make anyone's life better because they're afraid of taking votes on this. Let's see if this doesn't go away over the course of the next month and a half, and in fact, just builds and grows as drip by drip, new facts, new information come out. And of all the places for us to find this, the Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch and his family, which arguably have helped to prop up Donald Trump in the past. This isn't from the New York Times.
Right.
This isn't Brian Tyler Cohen breaking news, although I wish you had broken it first. This is the Wall Street Journal. This is one of the most reputable papers of record still left in the country. So pretty damning stuff.
Can I have your reaction to the fact that so many of the people Trump surrounded himself with in this administration, I'm talking about Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, these people who had staked their reputations on this idea that they have to get into the government because the government as it existed was filled with people who are just looking to protect the deep state, right? Protect people who are covered by this second tier of justice where they can commit heinous crimes and nothing ever happens to them. And then they get into these positions where they can substantiate their own claims. And when they find out that their own boss, the president of the United States, pretty newsworthy person to be in those files, when they find out that he's named in those files, they don't tell a soul. And it's been a couple of months now. And so what do you say to those people out there who trust folks like Dan Bongino, who trust folks like Kash Patel, when they said that they would go in and expose these deep state actors, and instead it seems like they've just turned into exactly what they've railed against?
I don't know these guys well, and I haven't really followed them in the past. I know them more by reputation than anything. But when I see them on TV in the midst of this exploding scandal, they look really uncomfortable. And the thing that Trump and Trump world have always tried to master is this confidence game of whatever lie they're peddling, whatever conspiracy theory they want us to follow them into. They always speak with confidence, and it's the tone of their voice, it's their body language, it's the assertiveness and certainty with which they pronounce every fucking word in every sentence. They don't look like that anymore. There's something completely changed in their body language, in the tone and tenor of their speech. This con that they have been running for so long, that they have been perpetuating, thinking that it would never, ever come back and get them, has finally begun to bite them on the ass. And they just don't know what to do with it, especially as drip by drip, we learn that Trump is more and more implicated with Epstein. And you're right, it's this perverse irony that these are the very people who inflated this conspiracy scandal to begin with, used it in part to purchase the power that they now wield over this country. And wouldn't it be some pretty fitting cosmic poetic justice for that very same con to spell the end of their term? But I want to warn everybody about this. And I know you don't need this warning, but maybe some of us out there do. There are some who would take some satisfaction in this, or even assume that this might spell the end of Trump's hold on his base or his political power going into 2026. This guy is cornered. He understands that this stuff is coming out, hence him lashing out at President Obama, accusing him of treason, the punishment for which is the death penalty, talking about taking his political enemies into jail and unleashing the full force and weight of federal law enforcement upon them. This is just the beginning. This is just the first, week after this thing really starts to break loose. Imagine as the furor and the anger from his own base grows, and the lengths to which he will go to try to distract people or to try to hold on to power that he would otherwise lose. That also helps to explain why Donald Trump ordered the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, and the Republican majority in the state house to literally, he said this out loud, find me 5 Republican seats. Not, I think these seats were drawn unconstitutionally. I think that they are gerrymandered. I think that folks aren't getting the representation they need. He's just being completely clear, saying the quiet part out loud. I'm going to lose this fucking election. I will have a check on my power in the House of Representatives if I cannot maintain the slim majority. And the only way we can get it done is Texas. So get me those 5 seats. And as you pointed out in your opening, that process in Texas just began this week. On Monday, the House gaveling in for a special session where the primary goal is to find Trump these 5 seats.
Okay, so let's dig into that point right now. What is the mood on the ground, both from the Democrats and Republicans? Because remember, there is still the risk that by stretching themselves so thin to try and get so many seats, to try and grab these 5 extra seats that Trump issues his clarion call for, that now they're in much more competitive districts than they were before. And if we have a wave year like 2026 right now looks like it's promising to be, then all of a sudden, these current Texas legislators, members of Congress, may very well be out of a job.
Man, you nailed it. When you ask about the mood, you see even in the comments in the press from Republican members of Congress from Texas, they're very sheepish. They're not really even willing to answer questions. They don't want to talk about redistricting and gerrymandering and members of Congress choosing their own voters. Not just because people find gerrymandering distasteful, but you just nailed it. It's because they realize they're going to sacrifice potentially their own seats in Congress in order to pick up these other 5 seats. What do I mean by that? When they gerrymander, if they're successful in doing this, in order to make these Democrat-led seats more competitive for Republicans, they're going to have to move Republican voters out of so-called safe Republican districts into these Democrat-represented districts. That's going to jeopardize their hold on power and what they were going to reliably be reelected into. And we might also be able to pick up these districts that are gerrymandered because, as we saw in Trump's first midterm in 2018, this guy is deeply unpopular once America wakes up to what he's doing. On immigration, arguably his most successful policy issue, he is polling at 35%. The big, beautiful bill, his handling of the economy, also in the tank. On Jeffrey Epstein, as we just talked about earlier, I mean, it is a complete washout. And so these Republicans have to run on the MAGA movement, on Donald Trump. So try as they might in gerrymandering. And look, we shouldn't take it lightly. It's going to make our odds a little bit tougher on our side. They may also be setting themselves up for an epic failure where it's not 5 seats they pick up, potentially, 8 or 9 or 10 seats that they lose if it is a total blowout. But beyond that, beyond Democrats feeling electric right now and energized, and yes, pissed off and angry, but channeling that anger into action and registering voters and recruiting candidates that are going to be competitive in these districts. There are more cards that we can play. You mentioned Gavin Newsom earlier. Governor of California has threatened to redistrict to Democrats' advantage in that state. I think he should do it. I don't think he should wait for Texas to go first. I think we should be bold. I think we should be on the offense. And then we also have the option of Texas Democrats in the state legislature leaving the state to break quorum, to deny the Republican colleagues the ability to move forward on these maps. It's a tough thing to ask them to do. They're leaving their families, their careers. They face arrest from state troopers in Texas. And as we can imagine in Donald Trump's America, you can see the FBI or DHS agents or the federal bureaucracy doing everything they can to hunt them down. But if they do this, I think it's going to be inspiring to the country. You were an absolute hero when they tried to do this in 2021 to stop Greg Abbott from rewriting our election laws to disenfranchise more Texans. They lasted for a pretty long time that time. I think this time, given the stakes, we might very well lose the Republic if we don't gain the House of Representatives. I think everyone's going to have their back in this. So, look, it's a tough situation, but I feel more optimistic given the fight that I'm seeing from Democrats across the board in Texas and in California for that matter.
And let's finish off with this. And you had alluded to this a little bit with California and going on the offense there. There are other states that could potentially be weapons in a redistricting fight, and that is Illinois, that's New York, Maryland. And so what would you suggest for these governors? Because so often it feels like, and I know that we've spoken about this too, so often feels like Democrats, if we're going to do anything, which is by no means a sure thing, at most, it'll be, okay, some tepid response to a major assault by Republicans. So Republicans gerrymander the shit out of Ohio, North Carolina, Texas, Florida this cycle. And we're like, okay, well, maybe we can squeeze a few seats out of California. But we do have other weapons. And so would you recommend that all of these governors basically say, okay, you know what? Like, here's what's going to happen. If there's any more gerrymandering moving forward, in advance of that happening, let's just go ahead and use every weapon we have at our disposal and let them know that if they want to engage in this cycle, this is what it's going to look like.
Absolutely. I would liken it to a basketball game where the refs have stopped making calls. And so the other side's just punching us in the face, kicking us in the nuts, doing everything they want to do without any consequence or accountability at all. And Democrats have been like, hey, where are the refs? This isn't right. The rules say that you can't do this. Why isn't somebody enforcing the rules? Or they're looking at the crowd who's watching the game and trying to garner their sympathy. Democrats need to punch back, and Democrats don't need to wait for the next punch. I would punch first if I were in one of those positions of power to do so right now, because we know where this is going. Trump is ruthless. He will use violence if he has to, which he tried to incite in 2021 on January 6th. He will tear up the Constitution right in front of our faces. He will break the law. He's doing all this stuff right now in broad daylight. And if we're going to be bound by the rule book or coloring within the lines or just, left to complain and whine and bitch and moan, what is that going to look like down the road after we're no longer a democracy, after we no longer have a constitution, when Trump is 2 years into his third term in office? There will be some explaining to do. So I think our message has to be to those Democratic governors: we love you. We want you to use every lever at your disposal to make sure that not only that we fight back, let's stop reacting and responding, but let's take the offense and fight forward.
That was as perfect a distillation of the current environment we live in as I've ever heard. And look, my message for anybody listening right now, especially elected officials, is that exact degree of fight that you just showed is what I hope that we can hear from every single Democratic elected official in the entire country right now. So, Beto, as always, I appreciate the work you're doing in Texas. I would mention right now for anybody watching, Beto mentioned we still have work to do in terms of registering voters. The work you do with Powered by People is second to none. So I'm going to put a link on this screen and also in the post description. If you're listening on the podcast, go to poweredxpeople.org. That is the best organization in Texas to register voters, among a raft of other excellent organizations as well. But please support Beto's work, support all of the great volunteers that are associated with Powered by People, and let's help continue to register voters in a state that is known to be the single most difficult state to register voters in the entire country. So again, I'll put that link on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Beto, as always, I appreciate the time.
Grateful to you, Brian. Thank you.
To listen to the audio version of this episode and to subscribe to my audio podcast, that link is right here on the screen. And of course, to see more of my content, the subscribe button's on the screen as well.